evening, everybody. Boy, a lot of forehead showing. I am Tommy, and you are on the Love Boat. Caroline in Canada, good to see you. Monk. Brock Bandy, what's happening? Hey, Susie. Good to see you. Hey, Ashley. Kristen Melinda. Brock. Sam, what's happening? Am I missing anybody? Sandy Winnie. All right, let's get this show on the road, shall we? John, good to see you. I'm glad you're here. Mike Bragg, what's happening? This is going to be a fun one, folks. I might not even offend anybody. Truthfully, this was a good day. It was a difficult day, but it was a good day. If you watch my brother's show, just another day at the Scoville Estates. Will, good to see you. Glad you're here, man. And on time. This is going to be a good one. Riley's Human, good to see you. Somebody sent me an email today, too, and they said, I'm tired of hearing that Christians are going to get persecuted. That's ridiculous. 100,000 Christians have died in Nigeria for being Christians. 18,000 Christian churches have been burned to the ground. That was just for the Carrie, good to see you. Glad that you are here, my brother. I misgendered Carrie the other day, and I apologize. We're about the same age. He's older than I am, though, and he will remain that way. I'm a year younger than him. This was a good day. There was a situation much like the situation with Carrie, where somebody left a comment today that was just so well thought out, and they told me some reasons about certain things that they disagreed with me on. But it was so well thought out that I walked away going, you know what? Her name is Amy. I walked away. It was just in comments, long ones, right? Worth reading. I believe it's on the video that's got the skull and crossbones. If you haven't gone over there and checked out the comment section, you should. Amy is a wildly intelligent person and is excellent at articulating her point. And that's really all I'm looking for. You don't have to agree with me. I would just like to be able to hear why you disagree with me. And here's a good one. Do you know why so many people can't articulate that? Johnny Scoville?
Tell me why.
I'll tell you why. There is a new research poll that says that under the age of 30 in the United States of America, 60% of people get their news from TikTok.
Holy crap.
How do you like them apples? If you take the entire group of people of any age, right now it's 20% of the country that gets their news from TikTok. Think about this for a second. If you're getting your news from a Chinese-run company whose algorithm is a Chinese-run algorithm, do you think you're going to see anything of truth? Because if you do, you are a fool. I mean, for real, get it together. While we're talking about crazy things like algorithms and such, let's talk about AI briefly, because there's some stuff in the news that I found downright fascinating. All of these huge AI companies, so you're thinking Meta, right? That the guy that started Facebook. You got the Chat GTP model run by Satan himself. I'm kidding. Honestly, he's kind of a creepy dude. But anyway, and then you got Grok, which is the AI model that has been built by Elon Musk. They are all competing right now to get a government contract so that the United States government will be running AI on every single one of its computers. Who's going to be the people that deliver that AI model? Now, if it ends up being Grok, we know that Elon Musk does not lean left, right? He's probably the only AI designer out there that is not very much left-leaning. Every other AI designer seems to be. So all of them are kind of competing for this. And you put bids in and you see what the government will take. If I told you that Elon Musk's bid to the government was 42 cents per agency, not per minute or per month or per year, no, just 42 cents. So the military, 42 cents, you buy the contract, it's yours forever. Right? Transportation, 42 cents, you buy the contract, it's yours forever. If you had that, would you sell it for 42 cents to anybody? Does that make any sense, Johnny Scoville? You know why it does? Terrifying. Terrifying. Here's why. Because whoever hands that over to our government, how long do you think it will be before the government is run by AI? Because we all tend to think that these computers are a hell of a lot smarter than people. So if you're looking at diplomacy, if you're looking at how to deal with international whatever, right? Trade, name it. Wouldn't it be better if you just had the smartest computer in the world telling you what to do? Sounds good, right? Sounds good. Because the smartest computer in the world would never tell you to kill people, right? I mean, that's That seems logical. It would try to maybe make the world a more peaceful place. I'm terrified by the concept. I've been watching videos long enough. I can spot and the AI generated videos. Yeah, but they're getting better, Mike. You got to be honest. They're getting better.
Hey, Ashley said, didn't you sell your voice to AI?
Yes, I didn't sell my voice to AI. That is not what I did. What I did was I wanted the AI models that will be treating sobriety this is how it was approached. The company came and said, they're building a computer version of people. If they call at 2:00 in the morning, they don't get someone that's asleep. They don't get someone that maybe had a bad day. And there's going to be, this is the future. You're going to call and get someone from AI that's going to give you advice. If you call up and say, I have, 6 gram a day heroin habit, you may not get someone on the line that's actually done heroin. You may get somebody that's a cocaine addict who's volunteering at this place, because most of those lines aren't run by people that are getting paid. So this is a really kind of prime market for AI in theory. Now, I'll be honest with you. There is AI that seems like a really good idea. There is AI that is not. They are not going to use my voice. They are not going to use, what they're going to use is all of the responses that I have ever said to anybody, not so that they will use my words, but they will see how I interact with people who are junkies. I'm a junkie. I'm not picking on anybody, right? But they will see how I talk to them, because normally what happens is, if a person talks to someone who sounds like they just graduated from Harvard and they say to you that the mu receptor sometimes is susceptible to certain substances that are agonist versus antagonist, and you go, oh, for the love of God. But if they think they're talking to somebody that can relate to them, it usually has a much different outlook. And that's what we sold. You'll never hear my voice. You won't even hear my tone. And it isn't me. It's me and a crap load of other people that do the same kind of stuff. They're trying to make them more human. And you don't run into too many people that crank out thousands and thousands of hours of them talking, especially on one subject. But that is what I did. And do I regret doing that? I don't. Would I do it again? Probably not. Now, if that sounds like two different things, with the information I had about AI at the time, I did not study AI before I did this. I always thought AI was a pretty cool concept. And then I played around with it. And I started to realize, sorry? Yeah, and on the bright side, it's a short contract. So we're literally almost halfway through the contract. And there's a clause we could bail at the end of the first year. It's been good. We wouldn't be here without it, right? I mean, we wouldn't. It gave us an opportunity to do some things. I saw an AI video on Thursday that said Tyler Robinson had been gunned down and his accomplices went through a trap door. What? Well, here's the thing. It doesn't have to be the truth. And I'm actually glad about all of the stupid things that everyone is seeing, because if you think your news is any different, right? Think about something for a second. In my lifetime, we've never known how many people were in the United States of America illegally. It has been 14% of the population my entire life. Are you going to tell me it never got any bigger? Because that doesn't make any sense at all. And you only have to look at small segments and snippets of what they give you in terms of data to realize that all data is BS. I'm sorry, it is. You know, now they say, well, the highest unemployment rate in the United States is 0.5%, right? I don't believe that for a second. Anybody that tried to get a job and then backs out is no longer counted among the unemployed. So what they do is each administration, right and left, tweak things so that their numbers look better. And this is an important thing in governments that do everything they can to lie to their people. Funny thing happened today. Turns out they're going to do an info dump where, you know, they release files like the JFK thing or the MK Ultra thing, where you get Freedom of Information Act style releases of things that have been classified for years. Amelia Earhart, the woman that was going to fly from the United States, first woman to attempt to fly from the United States to Europe. Her plane was lost and no one ever saw her again. Apparently, there's a lot of files that have been classified since that happened. And it's leading a lot of people to wonder whether or not maybe she didn't die the way they say that she did. There are a lot of tinfoil hat people that have said for years she was actually captured, and a lot of really bad stuff happened to her. Now, I don't know if that's the truth or not. You know what? We're all adults. Allegedly, there's a conspiracy theory that's been going on for a very long time that said she was captured and actually used as a prostitute for soldiers in the country. This is something that gained a lot of traction about a decade and a half ago. I don't know if it's the truth or not. I really don't. But there are classified documents, and they're getting ready to release them. The Epstein files might be nice. That might have been a better release, but whatever. That was in the news today. I thought I would bring that up. She would have lived the life she had lived. Yeah, well, thank you, my brother. You are a gentleman and a scholar. She was attempting an around the world flight. Yeah, it didn't go well. By the Japanese. Yeah, that allegedly Tommy Bird is what they have said. John says, no, her plane violently crashed. Well, you know what? And I'm glad that we're doing this, because here's the deal. Why are there files on this? If this is just a woman that took off and flew around the world and had a crash, why is there all this top secret stuff that we need to release? Kind of makes you wonder that every single story that we hear has files that they haven't released for decades and decades and decades. So have we just been getting BS from the very jump street in this country? And my answer would be, yeah, right? I mean, I remember the narrative on so many different things. The Iran-Contra affair was probably the first really big scandal that I lived through. I missed Watergate. But I read the books that came out about that. I remember the people that got arrested and prosecuted, and I was fairly invested in it. I was an idealistic, left-leaning college kid when that was breaking. To grow into adulthood and start studying it and realizing that Jeffrey Epstein was part of that. I mean, you start to see just the unbelievable amount of tomfoolery that has gone on for a very, very long time, right? And this is kind of terrifying to me, that so much of what we hear is BS, and that the people who control information now run the world, right? Plain and simple. The people that control information run the world. If you're under the age of 30, or if you're my age, or whatever, if you're getting your news from TikTok, good Lord. Good Lord. I mean, how it has to be. I mean, obviously 60% under the age of 30. Under the age of 30, a lot of us really haven't come into the critical thinking areas of our life. Some people get it earlier, some people get it later. But honestly, if you're getting your news from TikTok, you don't possess critical thinking. I've said this to people. I don't have TikTok. I will never have TikTok. I have read their contract. You got to be a jackwagon to agree to anybody going, hey, anything on this, go ahead, go through it. Take the pictures. If I got dirty videos of people, anything I got on my phone, it's yours. It's yours. Take it. That's what the contract says. They can go through, like, down here, we don't use a phone. We use WhatsApp, right? That's kind of how it works. Hey, Mike Bragg, good to see you. John, what's up? We use WhatsApp. We don't use phones, which is a slightly different setup. And when you download any of these apps, they say, look, we would like to get to your contact list. We'd like to do this or do that. TikTok says, we want access to every single thing in your phone. What could possibly go wrong? It's just the Communist Party of China, right, running it. A very different product here in the U.S. than it is overseas. Now, it's going to become a U.S. company. That's a good thing, right? It's a good thing, depending on who buys it. Because if 60% of people under the age of 30 get their news on TikTok, whoever buys this can control who the next group of under 30-year-olds will vote for. And here's the great thing. Right now, it is so far left-leaning, it is bizarre. If they were to just move the needle to the middle, people will scream about what has happened. Propaganda. Now we hear things about both sides, because there is not a voice on both sides of the equation on TikTok. There isn't nearly as much even on YouTube. Certainly not. I mean, come on now. They're all of them are pandering to you, depending on what your political leaning is. People have been reaching out to me in droves to prove their point about Charlie Kirk or about any of the other things that I've talked about. And without fail, they will send me a clip from a horrifically slanted to the left, someone who does what I do. And there'll be a clip that a guy plays for 6 seconds. And then they come back and go, see, he was a racist. People, how hard is it to stop someone in the middle of a sentence? Very often we say things that we say almost for absurdity, right? For real. Or people start to go dive deeper into certain subject matters, and things that people say get taken out of context. Kind of like James Comey, right? Who came out and said, I never said that I gave information classified. Hey, Wendy, good to see you. He saw smokes. What's happening? I never gave information to anybody. I never leaked any sensitive or top secret files, right? I didn't do that. I heard him in an interview. By the way, not a sound bite. I watched the entire freaking interview. And he said, I never leaked information to a newspaper. I gave it to a friend of mine who's a college professor. And then he leaked it to the press. And he did this on my instructions. So I thought that would get us a legal footing to go after Trump, right? Special counsel is actually what he said. Thought it would give me the opportunity to hire a special counsel to go after Donald Trump. Now he said, this didn't happen. This is the world we live in. Do you know how many people are just going to hear the soundbite of him saying, I never said that? The college professor has come out and said he never gave me anything. Then why did you say it? Because it's on film. That's not going to change anything. I promise you it's not. I'm not a Trump fan. I told you guys this. However, how many people still think Donald Trump said there's good people on both sides of the equation? And of course, that meant that he loves Nazis, right? There are still people that believe that that was the sentence. That sentence ended with, of course, I'm not talking about the white supremacists. I guess they skipped that part. You see, you just keep repeating a lie long enough and it becomes the truth. Give you another perfect example. Do you remember the woman that used to be the vice president of the United States, ran for president? I'll give you a hint. Every time I see her, she's loaded. I shouldn't say that. 70% of the time that you see Kamala Harris, she's shit-faced. Let me keep it honest. Watch Kamala talk. That woman is a drunk. This is what I do. This is what I do every day, right? That woman's a drunk. And if she's not, she's pilled out on benzos. I saw her yesterday, and she was on top. She's looped. But she went out there and said, closest presidential election of this century. Ain't a lick of truth to that. I mean, not a lick of truth to that. None. But the people that watch her get their news from TikTok, or they get their news from late night television. If you happen to be somebody that has actually looked at all of these elections, you go, holy crap, that wasn't even close. He won the popular vote. He won the college vote, and every single swing state. That doesn't happen in elections. It did when Reagan ran on his second term. Reagan covered the entire country, right? There was only, I think, one state that he didn't carry. Other than that, that doesn't happen. You don't always win the swing states. You know, you got to win 3 of them. They tell you the path to the presidency. Right? No, she got crushed. But she knows the world she lives in. And she knows if her drunk carcass keeps going out there day after day after day and repeating it, 40% of the country isn't going to ever hear the real thing, ever. And they'll pop into my chat and go, that was the closest election that we've ever had. Little critical thinking will go an awful long way, especially when things are happening that you really kind of need to be aware of, and maybe not at a TikTok level, right? I started this by talking about AI. What happens when Grok runs the entire government? Do you then have to start questioning, does it matter who you vote for? Does it make a crap bit of difference? Because I can see people saying, why do we need elected officials? How about if we just let these machines make all of the decisions, right? It's scary to me that we intend to put this into every single part of our government at 42 cents a whack. How bad does he want to be the one running this country? Now, let's just say that he was the most ethical man on planet Earth, right? Is the Pew Research legit? Does it lean one way or another? Every single group leans slightly. That said, there are some people that have been horrendous, and Pew is not one of them. The Democrats have the lowest rating in terms of popularity that they've ever had in the history of the party. That's a fact. That was recently done. It is the absolute lowest that they have ever been. And what's funny is the guy that did the study said, I saw him in an interview and they said, why do you think that is? And he said, well, the Democrats right now really only have 2 problems. One is their message, and the other is their messengers. Their message sucks. Again, I'm not here to pound religion down your throat. I promise you I'm not. But if that's not the way that we go, because people go, Christian nationalists would be the scariest thing in the world. Yeah, you should try on Sharia law and see if that might be a little scarier. You know what I mean? Like your sister goes out and dates a black guy so you can kill her in an honor killing. That flies in Sharia court. Women not being able to drive a car and having to cover their head in public flies in a Sharia court. So you think Christian nationalism might be worse than that? Do you know that there are countries all over the planet right now where you cannot preach? If you're outside praying out loud, you can be arrested if you're a Christian. You aware of this? My friends from Great Britain are writing to me saying, we're going to be a Muslim country within the next couple of years. And I'm not trying to be a dick, but I started to do a little research on what that actually looks like. And I'm not beating on Muslims. I just mean, what percentage of your population has to become part of one particular movement before that actually can take over an entire country? And I don't mean a movement in terms of Black Lives Matter or that kind of movement. I'm talking about when people come into your country who have a very different set of core beliefs than the people that live in that country currently. And most people who weigh in on this kind of thing, the intelligentsia, so to speak, say that when you start getting above 22 to 23%, then the dominant is going to win out. And that doesn't mean that the larger number, it means the more violent. Because very often when you let in 22% of people into your country that believe nothing that you believe, they're probably going to get militant to try to take it to the next level, either side. And whichever side gets more militant is going to win. And this is where you get things like genocide, because people go, I'm not letting this get turned into a country where we have Sharia law, and they start killing large numbers of people. I'm not making this up. This has gone on since we began speaking and writing things down in books, right? Hitler was kind of bent out of shape about the number of Jews that were living in his country, and we know how that worked out, right? It's a frightening concept to think that your belief system is something that you might be able to be persecuted for in the near future. Do you know who Tommy Robinson is? He speaks a lot of truth. I do know who Tommy Robinson is. There are a lot of people out there that I listen to on a daily basis. I listen to them at double speed. I was just wondering if Pew as a whole is trustworthy as far as their data. Of course, everything can lean a little, but I like to get info from the most central resources. So here's the deal. You could go, Pew is a good one. I mean, all of them are pretty close, and they didn't used to be, right? This used to be something that was really badly manipulated. Pew does fantastic when there isn't an election approaching. Most of them do fantastic when there isn't an election approaching, because people are way more honest until the commercials come on TV. Fascinating thing. They call it the Trump effect. When you called up from a phone room, because that's how they do these things, they call up and they go, "Hey, can I talk to the man of the house?" Guy gets on the phone. He goes, "Hey, are you married?" "Yeah, I have a wife." "Who are you and your wife voting for in the next election?" Well, over the course of the election, you might get 7 or 8 of those phone calls. If the first time somebody calls, you say, "Yeah, I think I'm going to vote for Trump," and they go, "Trump?" Like you're the dumbest person on earth, and you hear people laughing and everything else. It has been studied. And what ends up happening is when the next person calls, you go, "Yeah, I'm not voting for Trump." Because you don't want to feel like you're a loser. You don't want to get mocked. This was the phenomenon in the Hillary Clinton election, right? She was up by 80 points going into because nobody realized what questions to ask. Fascinating. There was a group out there that said, we did a little study and we called up houses and said, who is your neighbor going to vote for? Instead of saying, who are you going to vote for? Because now we live in a society where the identity of a lot of people on this planet is wrapped up on who they vote for president. So by asking, who is your neighbor going to vote for? People were free to say, oh yeah, they're voting for Trump, right? That group, it was the one group that predicted that election correctly. And they said, it ain't even going to be close. I promise you, it's not even going to be close. Trump's going to kill her. It was something that really caught a lot of traction. The way you ask the question is important. But Debbie, when we're not closing in on an election, because it makes a big difference. You turn on the television set and there are ads saying the Republicans are going to cut Medicare. They're going to get rid of abortion. They're going to get rid of birth control. And the left says they're going to put a gun in the hand of every single kid born, right? Then they're going to tattoo a swastika on his neck and he's going to go out and kill gay people. The commercials are so extreme. There's nobody talk. You don't hear a commercial for president where a guy comes on and says, you know, we got a failing infrastructure in terms of our bridges. They were built to last about 50 years. A lot of them are way older than that. We haven't really been putting any money back into the infrastructure. We have collapsing bridges. That doesn't come in commercials. You know what comes up? My opponent in 1976 had sex with a horse. I mean, honestly, whatever you can dig up that is the nastiest stuff in the world. And if you can't dig it up, you make it up. The October surprise. Make no mistake, every election in October, someone's going to go out and say, that man raped me. Maybe they're all rapists. I don't know. But it sure as hell seems like in October, right around election time, whoever got raped starts coming out and talking about it. And if you believe Blasey Ford got raped, you really might want to look into that. Do a little research on that. Whack job. I'm just curious what you think about. I think Tommy's a solid voice for reason. I think he's a solid voice for reason. But with every one of these people, a lot of the folks that I would say I'm new to Tommy, probably last six months or so. There are people I've been watching for years that I don't have any faith in anymore. There are people putting out information that just is simply BS. The thing that scares me a lot about where we're at, one of the things that I go off on a lot is we have a problem in the U.S. big time vis-a-vis the Food and Drug Administration and what that means to addiction and everything else, right? You have to put a tremendous amount of faith in the Food and Drug Administration, because if you don't, you have things like thalidomide, right? And these horror stories of medications that probably never should have hit the street. Lots been made about Tylenol, right? Tylenol was a Johnson & Johnson product. Johnson & Johnson spun that product out into its own company. It was no longer a division of Johnson & Johnson, which seemed like an odd thing to do. But there have been some, I'm not even going to say allegedly, these have been some very solid sources that said that Tylenol was aware as far back as about 7 years ago, that 7.5 maybe years ago, that the information coming in on their product and how it might relate to autism was off the chart. It was getting heavy, I believe is the quote. They said it was getting really heavy. And this was about 2018, right? Yeah, Tylenol, Chef Bobby, exactly. Tylenol creating autism. Here's my question. You sick sons of bitches. You knew this in 2018, but you just kept pushing this shit on the shelf as fast as you possibly could, right? So Johnson & Johnson got wildly hammered over the opioid epidemic. Johnson & Johnson was a manufacturer of oxycodone, right? With the Contin release on it, right? The same release that the Sacklers came up with. So OxyContin was, as a generic, was being manufactured by Johnson & Johnson. And it turns out that they were doing some shady stuff. If you got a doctor and you do the math and you realize the doctor is writing 1,200 prescriptions a day for a product, you start going 8 hours a day, right? How many patients you got to see in an hour to pull that off? It's absolutely ridiculous. You got to walk in the door and go, here's your script. Here's your script. Like, you have to have them literally filled out and just sign them as people come in. I did time with a few of those doctors, by the way. Guys that ran pill mills that went to prison. So the question becomes this: did they spin out Tylenol as its own company because they thought something bad's going to be coming, there's going to be some lawsuits, this is going to get ugly? Or did they think Tylenol might be our only solid brand because we're sure as hell going to get sued and lose a hell of a lot of money on the OxyContin thing? Billions of dollars, right? Either way, continuous release, that is. Yeah, that's right. It's the theory being, in case you guys are not hip to this, OxyContin is Percodan, right? Or Percocets, exact same drug. It's been around for over 100 years. No, damn near 100 years. And it is, by definition, probably one of the safer opioids. It's been used super effectively since before World War II. It is a very, very safe opioid. Doesn't mean people can't get addicted to it, but it was a very safe opioid. However, it was never doled out much more than 5 milligrams or 10 milligrams per pill, and 10 was rare. Most of them are 5 milligram pills, and they are added to that an anti-inflammatory. Almost all low-level opioids have an anti-inflammatory in it, because if you can get inflammation to go down, pain goes down. It's kind of a 1-2 punch. It becomes bad when people start taking 14 to 15 of these at a time, because it's not really the drug anymore that's getting you. It's the acetaminophen or the ibuprofen or whatever the NSAID, the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, that they add to it. That's really where it starts being a problem. So they said, what about people who have really long-term pain? And they came out with the Oxy 30, right? And Oxy 30 was 30 milligrams, like taking 3 10s. They put a time release on it, but people chipped the time release off. That extended release thing is in the coating. It's not in the pill. So that became kind of an issue. When it was really bad, they were also getting these out in 80s. And if you were terminal, they even had some of them that went over 160 milligrams per pill. I've heard people say they've seen 2 and 230. I never have. But I don't know. There may be. My husband was on the liquid bottle instead of methadone. How did you get along with the pill mill docs? I never went to one, oddly enough. Never went to a pill mill in my life. I was getting OxyContin from a pain management facility when it first came out. The woman was writing me a prescription for 12 OxyContin 80s a day. That's a pretty heavy amount of OxyContin. It's a really heavy amount of OxyContin. So many people eat Tylenol like M&Ms. That's true. Tylenol 3 and 4 have codeine in it. Tylenol 3 and 4 is a different drug. It's very popular in Canada. You could probably get it. I'm sure you could get it here. I'm sure that you can get codeine here. It's probably the only one. How did I get along with the pill mill docs in prison? You know what? I'll get hate mail for this one, Johnny Scola. They were Indian, all of them. So they tended to not hang out with the white car much. Nothing to do with me. That's just a prison thing. The inmates tend to segregate themselves. And the ones that are really intelligent, doctors went through a whole lot of schooling. To go from med school to Victorville is probably a real shock to the system. Pain management facility, says Wendy R. Yeah. I've never seen Oxy that high of a milligram. I've seen the 160s. They came in a capsule, not a pill. And God forgive me, but I knew a guy that worked at a hospice, and he used to bring out full bottles of Dilaudid and some other really heavy painkillers that he could get out of there. And one of them was OxyContin 160s. I used to be addicted to codeine. Also, that was brutal many years ago. How about that, Deadhead? Are you not in the US? Because usually when you hear of people that are addicted to codeine, it's in another country, because the US really kind of clamped down on, they just don't do much with codeine anymore. It's sometimes when kids get teeth out, they'll write a prescription for Tylenol 3. They don't use a lot of codeine in the US. The drug reps were ruthless back in the day. They'd do anything to sell their products. Yeah, I think they're still ruthless. I think they're going about it differently. You have to be a lot smarter than you used to be. And what Renee means by that is, they would come in and lavish money on the doctors and give gifts and all kinds of stuff to get them to write prescriptions for particular medications. Then the Food and Drug Administration stepped in after everybody got rich doing that and said that can't be done anymore. They get around it. They get around it by saying, well, we're going to be doing a training on this drug in the Bahamas for 2 weeks, and we'll fly you and your wife down, right? Or you, your wife, and your family down. And then they'll leave you $600 in chips at the front desk to gamble with every day. And they're training junkets instead of being money handed off. But it's just nasty stuff. Oh, yeah, there you go. All right, checks out. I was given Demerol after my first C-section. I was a mumbling zombie for 2 days. I made them change it. Wow. Funny thing about Demerol. If you inject Demerol into the fat of your body, like you stick it in a hip, a buttock, a shoulder, it actually gets you way more wasted than if you try to put it in a vein. It doesn't really do anything in a vein, it's a very odd drug. They don't use it much anymore. Demerol was really popular for a while. I was a fan. I liked Demerol, but it was rare. You didn't see it a lot. The family practice I did billing for got catered lunches every day from the drug reps. Yeah, that was a really big thing for a long time, man. Oh, the 160s, the Lucid 160s. Yeah, the 160s were rugged. About that same time was when the fentanyl suckers were coming out, the fentanyl lollipops. These were all designed. There was a period of time, there was a window of time when OxyContin was coming out where, and again, gets right back to the yardstick and everybody's morality. But there were people that came out. This is when they came up with the pain 1 through 10 with the little sign, and the one's got a guy, with a crap-eating grin on his face. And David, I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. And on the 10, they got the guy with just the miserable face. It's all little cartoon things. around the time that came out, people started saying things like, it is a human right to not live in pain. So anybody that has pain for any reason should be able to get treated for it. At the same time, the fine people at the Sackler family were telling the world that you had a 4% chance of getting addicted to OxyContin. I remember the first time I took an Oxy and went, 4%? The doctor said to me, you have to try to get addicted to this stuff. And after doing the first one, I went, oh, no, you don't. I promise you, the entire world is going to get addicted to this. And they started writing prescriptions for menstrual pain. They started writing prescriptions for toothaches. They started writing prescriptions for people that had, I mean, you name it. You could get a prescription very, very easily. What are we discussing? Well, I was discussing the Johnson & Johnson and the Tylenol spinoff. Kitty Litter Fund. You know, that is very kind of you, Rue. I appreciate that. The kitties, we're about to make a change for the kitties, but I'll keep that a secret. No, I won't. I'll tell you a little bit. We're going to deck the place out for cats. The cats have a real thing about being on shelves and being higher up, so we're just going to cat out the place, make it more fun to film. Look at the kids on all them drugs. If you have a hyper dog, take it for a walk. Kids need more stuff to do rather than give them drugs. You know, I always feel all meds do pose a danger. Unfortunately, there are some people that really need them, right? Like I have a lot of people that I've worked with over the years who come to me and say, I really want to quit doing opioids. And I'd go, yeah, you know, it's ruining your life. What's going on in your life? And they'd go, no, but I've been on them for about 10 years. And you say, well, why have you been on them? I was in a car wreck. I broke both femurs in my pelvis. And you're going, good God, what? You know, and when I'm not on them, I can't walk. But I really want to get off these. And I'd go, why are we trying to get off of them? Like, this isn't making sense to me. And truthfully, what happens is they like the show. They hang out for a little while. They listen to the things that I say. I'm not talking to people who can take a prescription the way that it's written on the bottle. I've never met a drug addict, and I use the word junkie specifically with opioids, but I've never met a junkie that could get a 30-day supply of drugs from their doctor and have it last 30 days. I'm just, truthfully, in my mind, that is absolutely a unheard of thing. Most of them go through it the first 7 days, and then they're out to the street to try to make sure that they can get through the rest of it. That's kind of how that works. So for a lot of people, opioids are literally lifesavers. My friend Kerry, the gentleman who I was talking about last night, the night before, who we've been sort of going back and forth, finding out what we have in common. Kerry needs that in his life. He has a very, very painful, a disease that it'll gnarl up your hands. It's a terribly painful disease. I started doing a little bit of research into it. And virtually everybody who has it has to be treated with opioids. That's a beautiful drug. There is a reason we have an MU receptor in our body. But when you take drugs when you don't have pain, you take a painkiller when you don't have pain, then it will kill emotional pain. It will kill spiritual pain, right? And any kind of aches and pains. But that becomes the problem. You have a bad day, you take some pills. You have a good day, it's a little bit too much, you take some pills. And the real danger with the morphine molecule is physical dependency. I would rather be addicted, right? I would rather be addicted to a pain medication than be addicted to pain. My pain level probably kicks around a 3 at most times. I can live with that. And I would rather live with a pain level of 3 for the rest of my life than be addicted to anything. I spent way too much of my life addicted. Rue, thanks again. I spent way too much of my life addicted. I'm not going to go down that road again. I'm in pain every day since someone totaled my car last December. Ugh. I have to work for 15 hours. I limp all over the place with back pain and hip pain. That sucks. Back pain is one of the worst things in the world. Back pain is like a toothache for your entire body. You know what I mean? When you are really, sobriety keeps me sober. That's what I'm talking about. Sobriety keeps him sober. Blitz, that's hard. That really is. That's hard. And I've been there. My pain is all back related. Well, 90% of my pain is back related. I've got some shoulder issues and some residual knee stuff from surgeries, but it's so the other things that we were talking about, if you got here late, is Elon Musk is selling Grok to the entire United States, or making a bid to 42 cents per agency. So the Department of Defense, the government will drop a big 42 cents. I don't know that anyone else is going to be able to compete. But in the best of situations, I've been in pain since 83 when I was almost killed by an accident on the job and 13 broken bones and a punctured lung. God help us, a punctured lung. You know what, Mike? Thank God. A lot of people die from that. Neck and back pain is horrible. Yeah, I broke my C6 vertebra twice. And I picked the wrong sport and did it for a really long time. It wasn't the smartest thing. And that's saying something because I've done a lot of really dumb stuff. But it is what it is. If Elon Musk was the most ethical man on planet Earth, then maybe the idea of his AI function running things like the Department of Defense, the Department of War, maybe he is selling Grok, and Grok is his AI. This is his AI platform, like ChatGTP. His is called Grok. I think they're on the 4th incarnation of Grok. I quit smoking weed and my back hurts all day, every day. I stay away from painkillers. Can't recall the last time I haven't been hurting. Woman of wonder, do you live in a legal marijuana state? If THC helps with your back, why don't you eat it? Right? There's THC ain't going to kill you. I mean, seriously, if that works for you, I don't recommend anybody light anything on fire and suck it into your lungs. Right? It's 2025. If we can't figure out that that's really, really bad. Why is he selling it? He's selling it because he wants the United States government to run his AI. Everybody, Hubs is concerned, it'll trigger my mania. Oh, that's legit. That's legit. Anybody that has anything going on in their life that is like a co-diagnosis, you should talk to a doctor before doing anything. Cannabis does work well for a lot of people in pain, but you might want to talk to a doctor about it. I don't know the answer to that. I'm really the wrong person to ask. But pain sucks. So there's got to be something you can do. 4 ribs were torn from the backbone. Is that the nastiest thing you've ever heard? God help us. Wow, Mike. Skiing is really hard on the body, especially when you land on your head. Brock, I'm telling you what, I did that way too many times, and it's kind of, I'm paying for it. It's kind of how it works. Capsaicin dulls pain. Stone cold fact. Scientific research out the wazoo to back it up. Right? True story. Absolutely, capsaicin is a great painkiller, whether it is in the form that you rub on your body or whether it's the stuff that you eat. Either way. I know some people use weed in rubbing alcohol, but please be sure to do your own research. Yeah, there is the thing with the legalization of marijuana is that they have. There's been a rush to get the highest THC quantity that you can out of the plant, and it's been genetically engineered and genetically modified, but it has enabled them to do some interesting stuff with the pain killing part of it. Most dispensaries in most places sell capsules of weed, not like Marinol, which is what they used to have. Marinol is not a great drug, but the stuff that they're doing actually from taking it directly from the resins of the plant. What a terrible name, Grok. Well, Grok is in reference to the book Brave New World. There is an alien that comes down to Earth, and when he understands something absolutely perfectly, like he can feel it, he completely gets it, he would say Grok, like he groks. And so I think Grok probably is a reference to the book Brave New World. I thought it was kind of a dumb name as well. Oh, how stupid we all were when we were young, thinking ourselves immortal and invulnerable. Now we're older and we're all paying for it. Isn't that right? Chef Bobby says, I'm pro-weed. I don't do it. They give it a bad rap. Booze to me is more dangerous and the true gateway drug. You know what's going to blow your mind, Chef Bobby? If you had said that 5 years ago, I would have agreed with everything you were saying. The data, and data that I actually happen to trust on this one, says that 9 out of 10 people now for their gateway drug comes out of a medicine chest in their own house. The advent of the internet and the ability for a kid to read the name on the side of a bottle and instantly know what that drug does has made most kids' first high now, not a cigarette, not alcohol, but something that they take. A stranger in a strange land. It was stranger in a strange land. Thank you. What did I say? What did I say? I say Brave New World. Stranger in a Strange Land. Well played. I use a TENS unit when I have, TENS works beautifully. Those TENS units, you put a sticker on you and it's an electric shock. I have a TENS system. I don't have it here, unfortunately. They are saying Elon Musk was friends with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, any truth to that? So here's the deal on this. Jeffrey Epstein, if you do the research, Jeffrey Epstein was voted the most eligible bachelor. Can't remember whether it was in New York or Florida, but this was a dude that was a really big deal. He had unbelievable amounts of money. He had a bunch of his own planes. And before people realized who he was, the way it appears is that his inner circle knew to the extent that he was a pervert, especially like Ghislaine Maxwell, some of the other people, obviously the people that worked for him, but photo ops with socialites and rich people, they collect pictures of themselves with people who are famous. And if you got a grip of money, then it isn't hard to get places where you can have your picture taken. It's difficult to find too many really prevalent people that didn't interact with Jeffrey Epstein at some point. Because again, he had a lot of money. He hung out in the social circles that most of these people do. When you get up to that upper echelon elite, those people who are very wealthy at the top, they tend to donate to the same charities. They tend to go to the same balls. They go to the same parties. They go to the same weddings. And he was a fixture in the upper elite socialite circles in the United States. Did he know Elon Musk? Absolutely. There's tons of evidence that he knew Elon Musk. There's no evidence that Elon Musk was ever on an island. He doesn't show up on any of the manifest records of ever flying with him or any such thing. It reminds me of Diddy. Oh, there's pictures of him with Oprah. There's pictures of him with everybody. At his 50th birthday party, there's nobody on earth that was famous that didn't go to that party because his agents were calling people. We'll buy you a plane ticket to get in here. We want you to come down, and they have a red carpet set up, and you just show up and put your arm around Diddy. It was for Diddy to collect all of those things. But we didn't know what was going to happen with Diddy, and now all those people had to backpedal and go, hey, I wasn't at the freak off, right? I was just at the beginning of the party. Howard Stern's pictures with him. You can't name anybody that didn't take a picture with Diddy. And there's a lot of similarities with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, here's the thing. If you got your picture taken with Jeffrey Epstein, say, after he got busted in Florida, I think that was 93, right? After the 93 bust in Florida, then you're a scumbag. Ehud Baruch. A lot of people from Israel, government people, were meeting with him often, flying to St. James Island, going to his place in New York. Baruch met with him so many times, it's crazy. And when pressed about it, he said, I didn't even know the guy had been busted. Why would you? You ran the Mossad. Right? How would you have found out that kind of top secret info? Just wondering why people liked Quaaludes. A guy in my dorm who used it was constantly falling and bruising when he used it. So the Stranger in a Strange Land. Thank you. I misspoke that. It was Stranger in a Strange Land. I take 20 milligrams of Oxycontin tablets 4 to 5 times a day, muscle relaxers, and gabapentin. Even the strong of a painkiller doesn't make me high. Oh, no, and it probably won't, right? Because there's a phenomenon, actually, where when you trip the MU receptor and you're actually in pain, that's what the drug does. It's when you're not in pain that the drug gets you high. That's the truth. If you have a ton of pain, you got to take way more pain meds to get high. It's like, think about sending people to work, right? If they're taking care of business, then they're probably not doing anything else. It's fascinating how it works. But yeah, most people who are in severe pain don't get a buzz from pain meds, even if they take a lot of them. And by most standards, 20 milligrams 4 to 5 times a day is not a huge dose of Oxycontin. It's at the bottom end. I mean, at least from people that I have worked with, I knew guys that were taking, more than I was. So there are guys out there taking 20 and 30 of those things a day. You can build up a pretty big tolerance. Thoughts and prayers for Carrie. That's a tough road to hoe. It really is. Now, why do people like Quaaludes? So methaqualone was a very unusual drug. And like so many other drugs, that one happens to be a barbiturate, but benzos are the same way. It was a drug that, in theory, Quaaludes were supposed to put you to sleep, right? They're supposed to put you to sleep. That's the idea. However, if you didn't fall asleep, then you ended up feeling like you drank a couple of cases of beer. The people that used to fall down and hurt themselves and really get silly are people that drink on them. Because when you put even one beer on a 714, that was what was printed on those pills, from lemon or Rora 714s. When you first started taking that, you put one beer on it, you'll black out. Like it really affects the strength of the drug if you drink on it. And that was a real problem, that there were a lot of people that used to like to drink a lot on Quaaludes. And you start doing that, you can't understand anything anyone's saying. Amazingly, though, the people who are on Ludes usually can have a conversation with you. It was a very abused drug. In fact, it was the most prescribed drug in America at one point until they had a hearing on it. And the doctors who went to the Hill said, there is nothing that this treats. There is no reason to write a prescription for this. And it was the #1 written prescription in America. Yeah, Disco Biscuits got really big really quick. I suggest everyone take a full day out of their lives to watch Epstein documentaries at some point. Educate yourself to fully understand the background of today's political situation. Britt K makes a really interesting point. I've done a few shows on doing some deep dives on Epstein. Epstein was an arms dealer. He really was. Epstein, and I don't mean he was running guns, but if you're going to buy, let's say you're going to buy, 400,000 AK-47s. You got any idea how much money you got to move around the world in order to do that? So Jeffrey Epstein was really great at making money go from one place to another without anybody getting caught for transporting the cash. It's not the same thing as laundering money. It's moving money and keeping it off of books. And he was good at that. So they brought him in. He worked with Adnan Khashoggi. He worked with a lot of really low-life people. And at the end of his career, he worked with Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton wasn't just flying on jets to go have sex with kids, although I think he probably was. Just an opinion thing. Bill seems like Glenn Quagmire to me. I believe that. Hey, Reese, good to see you. He's got that. He gives off those Glenn Quagmire vibes, and he spends a lot of time on the Lolita Express. Hold on one second. That sneeze was atomic. If the microphone had been on, people would have lost hearing. Did you hear that, Johnny Scoville? That sound healthy to you? Woo! That was rugged. But yeah, the purpose of the lewd was to get you to go to sleep. There are a lot of drugs like this today. Xanax is, in nature, not that dangerous a substance. In fact, all of the benzodiazepine family, Valium, Xanax, Ativan, any of those drugs were designed to replace benzos because benzos, by their nature, were really dangerous. In fact, Seconal and Tuinal, those became like the go-to drugs for people that wanted to commit suicide. Barbiturates were really a heavy-duty drug. Hey, Pete Taylor. So once they started aspire to inspire, good to see you. They started to back off on that. They started to push out benzos and enter the Sacklers. The first benzodiazepine to go onto the market was Valium, right? Diazepam. And it was the first drug ever advertised. And the first guy that advertised its name was Arthur Sackler. He was the patriarch of the entire family. And you may not believe this. He is in the Pharmaceutical Advertising Hall of Fame. I bet that's a barn burner of a visit. What do you think? And here I was going to go look at some art, but you go in there and look at all these people that, how many people did you kill? My defense attorney, Dad, used to have to get people out of jail for getting busted for Quaaludes in the olden days. Rue, your dad probably made a living on that. When Quaaludes were kicking, it was like nothing else. A lot of people spent a lot of time unconscious. A lot of people. It was a fairly dangerous drug. A lot of car accidents on it. Ludes were really something else. If you ever saw The Wolf of Wall Street, usually when they show drugs in movies, it's ridiculous. They're never good representations of the drug. It's always, they usually screw it up. It's usually made by people that may have done the stuff but weren't around it much. The how they showed the Quaalude in that movie was actually pretty damn realistic. I was given this old drug called Doxepin for sleep. It was the strongest med I've taken other than Dilaudid. Hydromorphone. Ugh. Lady O, good to see you. Hydromorphone is among people that do opioids, pretty much considered the it drug. The only one that was better was Opana. And that's because Opana was just a crap load of Dilaudid in a time release. But that was one of the only drugs that I've ever seen in my lifetime that they got the knack. Like that drug came out, and within a very short period of time, they were in front of Congress going, nobody should be eating this. I mean, they were giving it in huge doses. You know, normally when they write a prescription for Dilaudid, for hydromorphone, it's like 2 milligrams, 4 milligrams, 8 milligrams. It's about as big as you're going to get. Imagine like 35 milligrams. That's just really terrifying to think of. And a lot of the people that get that stuff don't eat it, right? They peel the coating off, and actually with those you don't even have to. But what they do is they end up cooking it and shooting it, you know, putting it directly into their veins. And it's a heavy drug, very, very, very popular among the junkie folk. It's probably the most sought after of all of them. Very, very expensive when people can find it. Yeah, that's a strong drug. The one that I found more debilitating than anything was Seroquel. That inside prison, that used to get passed around for people that had sleeping problems. You could buy one about this big and smack it with a lock and pick up little pieces of it and eat it for like months, because one little sliver of it would knock you out for like 16 hours. Crazy dangerous. I've seen people turn into different humans like that to steal. Why? You know what? This is actually, I could probably do a 4-hour show on this, right? Because I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. But what happens with these drugs, for most people, the point of reference of drugs is different than the addict, right? So for most people, they go, well, I've been drunk. I've had 5 or 6 beers, or I've smoked a lot of pot. If you do a drug, and let's say you party on it with friends and you do it for 2 or 3 weeks, and you wake up one morning and you didn't leave any for the following day, and you don't ingest anything, and within about 8 hours, you feel a kind of pain you've never felt before. You start vomiting, you start defecating on yourself, and in a really short period of time, you're not getting high anymore. You're buying the drug so that you're not sick, and going from feeling like you're going to die to feeling like you're not going to die becomes the buzz. You know, you don't see people nodding out and doing this one. You know, usually by the end, they're just trying to stay well. They're trying to not be sick. And that's why it's such an insidious substance. Anything that has the physical dependency thing on it is just insidious. And you end up becoming a thief because you can't make enough money to keep yourself safe, right? I robbed banks. You still can't come up with enough money. Heroin costs a ludicrous amount of money. Drugstore cowboy. Back in the day, you know, yeah, your body forcing you to succumb. It's exactly what it is. Drugstore Cowboy movie is one of the most, that's one of those films that I couldn't watch today, I promise you, but I bet I've seen it 150 times. And may have even done 1 or 2 of those in my time. Quitting substances is hard, Rocket Queen. Here's some good news, and this is what I wanted to leave with. So there is what they're calling a groundbreaking study in New York. I promise you, I will have to find the video, but I talked about this in a video 2 years ago. And what they're doing is they're doing experiments on people that have gotten addicted to opioids. And instead of doing what they normally do in terms of treatment, they're microdosing buprenorphine, right, which is Suboxone. I spent about 5 years of my life on that, getting acclimated to the real world again after prison and all of that. By way of full disclosure, I don't have a problem with Suboxone conceptually. I think it's a fantastic, it's a life-saving drug. I'm no longer on it, thank God. I just got to a point where I didn't need it anymore and I quit. For those who talk about how hard it was to quit, I quit and you guys didn't even know, right? I came on and did shows every night and you never saw it. It's just, it isn't that hard a substance to quit. But it normally is given out in either 8 milligrams or 16 milligrams is the normal dosage daily. Now, there are doctors that will write more than that. Most mainstream science says that over 16 milligrams and you're not getting anything done anyway. So if you take 24, it doesn't make a crap bit of difference. You know, the difference between 16 and 24, you're not even going to see it. It's almost a waste of time. But I have seen Spun. Spun is a great representation of meth. Absolutely a great representation of meth. Dr. Bradley Nelson does energy emotional healing. Pretty interesting. I will have to, give me 1 second. I will look up that name because that I'm not familiar with that, and I hate that. It's always so much easier that way because I'm not good at anything else. But so now what they're doing is they're giving people as low as a half a milligram a day to a milligram a day. And I've been telling people for a hell of a long time that this was coming. And the reason I knew it was coming is when I got sober in prison, I watched guys who were strung out on dope who would buy Suboxone and cut a strip into 32 pieces. And they would literally make one strip last 32 days. And I thought, how is that possible? Like, how is that, And as I got out, I thought, why in the name of God are they giving people 16 milligrams? If I'm watching 250-pound convicts make a strip last 32 days and not get sick. Well, now some people who have got a lot of initials after their name are starting to agree with that. And we're going to be seeing a lot of stuff change. Requiem is an interesting film. Requiem for a Dream. It's about it's heroin and cocaine in that. I have beef with a lot of that movie, though. That's one of the movies. Perfect example, actually. So each time they shoot heroin in that movie, they close up on the person's eyes and the eyes go like this and get bigger, which works, but not for heroin, right? That's a meth thing. That's a cocaine thing. You shoot heroin and your pupils dilate. They go to pinpricks. And as a guy that just spent a lot of time doing stupid stuff, when those kind of things happen in movies, I go, oh, come on, you can do better than that. Like, how much research would that have taken? I know the well, but benzodiazepine, particularly, I've noticed people steal stuff that would never be stolen. Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying, bud. I see what you're saying. No, I'll tell you exactly why. Yeah, I actually have a good answer for this. Trainspotting, best heroin movie ever made. And I'm not glorifying the drug. It absolutely does not glorify the drug. But you want a realistic representation of heroin, Trainspotting is the film to see. That is a heavy-duty film, man. That is a heavy-duty film. Really a heavy-duty film. So, yeah, the reason with benzos, just think about this. A benzodiazepine does exactly the same thing in your brain that alcohol does. Exactly. So much so that if you're a person drinking 2/5 a day, we always say, don't quit alcohol cold turkey. Talk to your doctor before you quit benzos or alcohol. If you go into a detox center and you say, I'm drinking 2/5 of bourbon a day, they can't cut you off cold turkey. You'll have seizures. It'll kill you. But they're not going to hand you a bottle of bourbon and say, all right, make this last 4 days. They put you on what's called the benzo protocol. And they're going to give you benzodiazepines in high doses in the beginning, maybe Klonopin, depending on how much you've been drinking, and go from clonazepam down to diazepam or down to alprazolam, and eventually get you down to where you're doing almost nothing. Basketball Diaries, second best heroin film ever made. Now, the book is so much better. The Basketball Diaries was written by a guy named Jim Carroll. He was a prodigy basketball player in New York in high school and was recruited to play college ball and caught a habit while he was in high school. And he did not spend a lot of time on heroin. He had a pretty short run. He got sober. But even as a kid, he journaled every day. And the stuff that he wrote while he was wasted was originally Audubon protocol in the hospital. Audubon is lorazepam. It's depending on the milligrams they give you, you probably could do it, right? If you could start them up on around 4 or 5 milligrams and then take them down from there. Audubon is probably, I think one of the maybe one of the less abused of the benzos. Obviously, the one that really seems to get a lot of name brand recognition is Xanax, but it does in the brain the same thing that alcohol does, right? Exactly. That's why they can treat one with the other. The problem is alcohol. What's the first thing alcohol does? Is it dumbs down the part of your brain that makes good decisions. I mean, that's what it does. How many times do you hear a guy go, boy, I went home with a girl last night? Or a girl go, you will not believe the guy that I was dancing with last night. I saw a picture that my friend took. Like, what the hell happened? Because as you dumb down your brain, you're literally putting to sleep parts of your brain. Alcohol and benzos are fantastic if you take them the way you're supposed to. If you're not, if you have an anxiety disorder and you're taking a benzo for that, fantastic. Kristen Melinda, always there with the right thing to say. Please consult a doctor before making any changes to your medications. Quitting alcohol or benzodiazepines too quickly can be fatal. And I'll tell you something else, right? May I suggest, just maybe, that I don't care what you're quitting. If you're quitting anything, if you're quitting weed, talk to a doctor before you quit anything. If you have the ability to do that, it's not going to cost you too much money, do it. And the reason that I say that is There's cutting edge stuff going on with rehab. There is cutting edge stuff going on with addiction. They are doing things that we never even would have thought of doing, right? Giving people basically Narcan for the purpose of getting the brain to not release feel-good chemicals when people drink. Doesn't mean alcohol is not going to get in your system and do what alcohol does. But the alcoholic and the person who's not an alcoholic drink, and the alcohol affects them the same way. But the alcoholic, the brain goes, that is the most important thing you've ever done. And it gives you all of these chemicals to make you feel like, oh, yeah. If you've ever watched somebody, they got the shakes, right? Somebody who's really an alcoholic, like deep into the disease. The second the booze hits their lips and they set it down, you'll see them start to relax. And we know that doesn't work. It's going to take 15 or 20 minutes for that to get in your stomach, go through the stomach lining, right? But just it hitting your lips releases the feel-good chemicals and your body goes, hey, we're all right. If you've ever been addicted to a drug that you had to buy from a drug dealer, heroin would be a great example, right? You're sick. You need that. They put it in your hand and you instantly feel better. Literally, because your brain already knows it's there and it releases the feel-good chemicals. Science is getting a way to turn that switch off. And it takes a lot of the fun, and I use that euphemistically, right? But it takes a lot of the fun out of the process. Now the fun chemicals aren't getting released, and all you get is the I'm stumbling around, right? I'm stubbing my toe. You know, it's less fun if the brain isn't flooding you with chemicals to make you think that you just made a good decision, and you didn't. Alcohol. The other thing that alcohol does, I work on watches, right? And if I get moisture in a watch, to get rid of that moisture, I use alcohol. When you drink alcohol, it sucks all the water out of your body. Anybody that's drank too much on a Friday night knows that on Saturday morning, you're going to get up and start pounding water. Like you can't get enough of it in your body. You cannot feel like you're getting hydrated. It's a dangerous, dangerous drug. And unfortunately, we advertise it during the Super Bowl and there's billboards for it. And, you know, we really kind of make alcohol and social environments seem like they have to go together. And it makes it very difficult for people who are trying to quit drinking. I've heard rehab for alcohol and opiates is easier than meth. Is that correct? I don't believe so. I don't believe so at all. Now, that said, all of these things you got to kind of take on the middle row, right? Because the extremes of any of them, the problem with meth is, and I saw a doctor once put this on the board. I'm going to make the numbers up because it's a lot easier this way. But they talk about things like a doctor handing a baby to you for the first time. You pick up your son, your daughter, and you get 8 on a scale of how many, that much brain chemical gets just wasted out into your body. The first time you have sex with somebody that you've never had sex with before, and you really love that person or want that person or whatever, they say that could be a 7, between a 7 and a 9, depending on the situation, right? And then what you end up with instead is methamphetamine. And if you happen to use it, say, in a needle, or you're smoking it, or you're doing a hot rails, any of these things that get large amounts of this into you, especially through your lungs or your veins in a short period of time, and they say you're going to be up at around a 14 or a 15. Now, what happens if you do that and then have sex with somebody? You're getting so many brain chemicals released into your body at the same time that when you quit, you get what's called anhedonia, and it's the inability to feel anything. You don't feel happy, you don't feel sad, you don't feel squat. And what happens is your brain goes, I'm not releasing any more chemicals. We're not doing this. Because I know that if you want to release some chemicals, you'll stick a needle in your arm, you'll plunge that thing down, and then we'll release the stuff. So that's usually what they're saying, Renee B, is that for people that get that far into it, if you've been doing it for 20 years, you can quit. It's not going to be hard to put it down. There's no physical thing, but you're just not going to be happy. And if you want to feel happy, you're probably going to have to do the drug. And they're working on this. These are things that they're studying. But I think that meth is a great example because we didn't know this a decade ago, right? But bikers have been making meth since last century, right? Since the 60s, bikers have been cranking out meth. I love how a doctor will come out today and tell you that the stuff that we're doing to kids with the hormones and the all of that stuff, no, we've tested that safe. We don't even know what meth does to you. We're figuring that out, and they've been abusing it daily since the 1960s. Where are the double blinds for what they're doing to 8-year-olds? I'd like to see it. Ex-sniper Marcus J. Allen has an interesting perspective on the Charlie Kirk situation. If interested, he's very informative. I have seen that. In fact, I've seen, I think, probably 3 different people that have the same opinion or very similar opinion. I don't know. I don't know the deal on the Charlie Kirk assassination. I really don't. I feel like the more important question is, I want to know if there was more than one shooter. I want to know all of those things, but I'm a little freaked out more than anything else in the despair, how badly we have fractured. A lot of my Democratic friends have reached out to me and said, hey, the hate's on both sides. And I love you, but that's bullshit. I'm sorry. Every single time something happens to somebody on the other side of the aisle, you never have Republicans go, I wouldn't vote for a bill to say that was bad. I really want you to think about this. There was no money in that bill. It's a ceremonial bill. It is it's something that is symbolic. It is nothing that has any teeth. They're not implementing anything. They're not calling it Charlie Kirk Day. They said, we just want everyone to weigh in on the fact that political assassinations are never a legitimate way to end discussion. And on the people elected to run our country, right? Squirrel and zipper. The people elected to run our country on the Democratic side, over 60 of them wouldn't vote for that. If one of you votes for one of those assholes, I need you to explain to me why. Send me an email why you would vote for somebody that would not condemn political violence. And they're going to say that the right ratchet up the rhetoric. When the politicians you put into the House of Representatives say, I'm not voting for that, you are advocating for violence. You advocate against it or you advocate for it. If you say, I'm not going to vote for something that says we can't have violence, the absence of that vote says I'm cool with it. So miss me with all the BS about this being on both sides because I'm getting tired of it. And on that note, this here is a cat in a basket. Have a great night. I love you all. Bye-bye.